November 18th, 2001 is a day that will forever be etched in the history of professional wrestling. It was a day in which we saw a 5-on-5 elimination match, winner takes all, and it was between the WWF and the Alliance. The Alliance, a team consisting of WCW and ECW superstars. In the end, the WWF won and WCW and ECW were forever done. But what happens if the unthinkable had happened? What if the Alliance had won? We're going to go back in time to 2001, jump in the DeLorean, and find out exactly what happened if history had been changed. Hello and welcome to WWE2K24, and this is my universe, WCW 2002. How you doing, everybody? Eric Eben Twins 28 here. We have gone back in time. There has been a change in the space-time continuum. WWE, or also known at that time as WWF, is no more. The Alliance won, and a new ownership group is now in place. The paperwork's been signed. Eric Bischoff is the majority owner as he controls a group called TNA Entertainment LLC. It consists of him as the majority shareholder, followed by superstar, now turned businessman Jeff Jarrett, and minor owner Dixie Carter. She will not be playing any role on screen. She is strictly behind the scenes to help out, and we'll go from there. With those three in place, we move on from Survivor Series. Now, due to what happened, the roster has now exploded. There's well over 100 superstars on the roster between WWF and the Alliance, and now with what happened at Survivor Series, Eric Bischoff and company has made the decision to go on a hiatus to do a total organization audit, to go up and down the roster, decide who they want on their roster. They also want to make rebranding decisions on weekly television shows, as well as the monthly pay-per-views, which championships to move forward with, etc., etc. We're going to take a look at everything behind the scenes in this episode, this Prelude episode, and then next episode, episode 2, we will begin the first episode. Now, before I get into anything, I just want to let everybody know I'm going to do the best I can to keep the history of both WCW and the WWF intact. There will be some things I will be keeping with both organizations as we move on with WCW leading on. So, the hiatus lasted from Survivor Series all the way to the beginning of May 2002, which means WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, and all the pay-per-views in between did not take place. That means WrestleMania 18, which actually should have taken place in April or March of 2002, will be pushed back to 2003. So we will get to see WrestleMania 18, but it will be pushed back 1 year. And the same with the Royal Rumble, which I believe... no, in this playthrough, we're just going to go on. We're going to do what Royal Rumble looked like in 2003, But WrestleMania 18 is pushed back, so this is the first time ever that WrestleMania has not happened since it was debuted in the early 80s. So I also have done a roster draft lottery because with the roster so big, we have 2 separate rosters, actually 3, which I'll get into in a little bit. So we'll have 3 separate rosters that will hold both locker rooms, WWF and WCW. So let's get into the playthrough, and I'll show you guys what the new federation looks like in May of 2002. So here we are at the calendar, and as you can see, we have 3 weekly shows plus the pay-per-views. So I'm keeping 1 show from each federation as kind of keeping the history going. I decided to keep Raw on Monday nights. I originally was going to have Nitro there and move Raw to Thursdays, but I'm like, no, let's keep Raw where it is. So I will be debuting the 2002 rebranding of Raw, the classic one, with Across the Nation as the intro song. So Monday Night Raw will stay on Monday nights and will have their own separate roster. I'll get into rosters here in a little bit. And then I rebranded Thursday Night Thunder and moved it to Thursday night. So SmackDown is no more. So we have an ode to both WWF and WCW with their respected shows. And then I have a new weekly show on Saturdays. It's called Impact. This was created by Jeff Jarrett and Dixie Carter. And this is a show, it's a smaller show, it's smaller in scale, and it's shot in one location in Orlando, Florida. And this is for superstars who won't get as much TV time on Raw and Nitro, and also allow new superstars to come in and be developed and get ready for the main rosters. There's two separate championships on this show compared to the other two, which have 7. I'll explain all that when we do the roster lookup, and I'll show you guys the belts. So Impact is its own separate brand. It will not be showcased on any pay-per-views, minus maybe a couple of the big ones. They might get 1 or 2 matches, but for the most part, they will not be featured outside of Impact. On the Sunday pay-per-views, I have for WCW Raw, their pay-per-views are in the third pay-per-views on the month, while Nitro sponsored ones will be on the fourth Sunday of the month. Shared events, such as the Big Five, there's 5 that are shared, they will be on the fourth Sunday of the month between Raw and Nitro. Starting off in May, for Raw will be Backlash, while WCW gets a new one created by Jeff Jarrett and Dixie Carter, and that is Genesis. In June, one of the first Big 5, King of the Ring, will be a shared event. In July, Victory Road for Raw. This is going to be changed. This logo will be changed eventually. For WCW Nitro, Bash at the Beach. In August will be the shared pay-per-view SummerSlam. September is Vengeance for Raw, and a new one created by Jeff Jarrett called Lockdown. Now, Lockdown is an interesting one, as each match in this event will be held in a steel cage. So, men, women, tag teams, everything will be steel cage, hardcore rules on this pay-per-view episode of Lockdown. October for Raw will be No Mercy, while WCW Nitro gets Halloween Havoc. November, of course, Survivor Series, that's a shared event. December, Raw hosts New Year's Revolution, and another new one that Jeff Jarrett has come up with, Destination X. This one will feature a special match where there's a high above the ring, you see 2 wires going across the ring in an X shape, and in the center of the ring is something hanging that you have to go retrieve. So that will be Destination X, which will showcase ladder matches and the high-flying cruiserweights and the new division that's created for Impact, which is the X division. In January, the Royal Rumble, that will feature all 3 rosters. I actually forgot to change that. So I have to change that host show. I'm going to add Impact because I might give those young bucks there a shot at it. So we'll have all 3 at the Royal Rumble for that event. In February, for Raw will be No Way Out, while Nitro will host Mayhem. And in March will be Judgment Day for Raw and Greed for Nitro. And of course, at the end of April will be WrestleMania. WrestleMania usually was at the beginning of the month, but now we're going to do the end. And that will mark the end of the calendar year for the Federation. So for the championships, I have I'm going to show you, let's show you Nitro first. Now, at the time of Survivor Series, whichever championship I have on either roster will reflect who the champion is for that belt. So for the ones that had a championship holder on the WCW titles, I have somebody holding the belt. I have implemented new belts that I will show you that do not have champions, but there are number one contenders, which I'll get into in a minute. But let's lead off with the big ones in WCW, and this was, of course, again at the time of the merger of Survivor Series. These are the people that were holding the title. So the World Heavyweight Champion is The Rock, and forgive me for that being current Rock and not 2002 Rock. I've been trying to find a 2002 version of The Rock, and I can't download it. It won't let me. The file is either, damaged, which won't let me download it, or it's unavailable for me to get. So just bear with me on some of these superstars that aren't available because they're newer pictures, older selves instead of way back when they were younger. So The Rock is a world champ. Edge was U.S. champion. The tag champs were Palumbo and O'Hare. There was no women's champion in WCW. I have created a new belt that will be up for grabs. That's the women's world champion. The cruiserweight champion was Tajiri. The cruiserweight tag team champions was Kidman and Rey Mysterio. Now, and Rey Mysterio, of course, is wearing his mask again in WCW. At the end, he wasn't. Now, these tag belts were made prior to when Time Warner sold WCW to WWF. They are some of the most ugly ass belts ever. I'm going to get a new one. I'm going to build a new one. But this was a great concept. This was when they were trying to re-image WCW and infuse some life into it. And this was a great idea to get the cruiserweight division going further. That was one of the things they did post Vince Russo in charge, was emphasis on the cruiserweights because Vince Russo hated them. And it was a good idea. It's just the timing was beyond repair, and of course the belts are ugly. So I'm going to be pushing the cruiserweight belts heavily. And then we have the Hardcore Championship, which was in WCW but was vacant at the time. So I'm bringing it back, and as a brand new title. That's not the original. That's a brand new one. So this will be shared across this roster and Raw as well. This will be the only belt that'll cross brand. So those are the belts for Nitro. On Raw is a different story. We have all brand new belts. I have the Undisputed Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, the Tag Team Championship, which you can recognize that belt as one I used in the previous playthrough, the Women's Championship, brand new one, and the TV belt is back. That was another belt that was from the old regime that was retired. So that's being brought back. And of course the Hardcore title, which I just explained, will be cross-branded. Now, with these belts, whoever was holding the WF titles, that match these belts, will be the number one contender to each belt. So whoever they face will be determined here on the upcoming Raws leading up to Backlash. Minus this belt here, which I believe I already have somebody in mind to go after, both participants to go after this belt, but I'm not sure yet. On Impact, I had to put a belt in place because it's a major show. It's not a minor one. If I would have made this a minor show, I would have had to pick one of Raw or Nitro to be a part of this show to host it, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted its own separate brand, so that's what I did. So there's two belts on this one. There's the Impact World Championship and then the X Division Champion. That's the only two belts that are on this. That will be strictly Impact. They might get featured on a major pay-per-view, that one of the big five. But these are the two titles for Impact Wrestling. Now, as far as the previous WWF champions, I will show you guys who holds what belt. So RVD was the Hardcore champion, so he will be in the contendership match for the new WCW Hardcore Championship. So we move through these. There you see Tajiri, Kidman, and Mysterio. We've already established those. And Edge, Palumbo and O'Haire, and The Rock. Bradshaw and Farouk, the APA, are the tag champs on Raw, so they're a #1 contender. Steve Austin was the WWF champion, so he's a #1 contender for the undisputed title. Christian was the European champion, so he will be a #1 contender to the TV title. Tess is the Intercontinental champion, so he'll be the #1 contender for the WCW Intercontinental Championship. X-Pac was the light heavyweight champion, which eventually got infused into the cruiserweight title, but because cruiserweights are on Nitro, X-Pac's on Raw, he is going to compete for the Hardcore Championship. So him and RVD will do battle for the new WCW Hardcore Championship. So that belt is locked up. And then Trish Stratus was the women's champion, so she's the #1 contender for the women's championship on Raw. So all the belts except the Hardcore title will have a contendership match to determine the final participant in those belts, and then we will go from there. Tag teams. As long as we're here, I'm going to show you guys who I got for tag teams. There's one team I haven't chosen yet, which I'm going to do right now, and you're going to see me do it, and it's 3 count. But it's going to be missing one member because one member went solo, and he's fighting crime right now, so he's going to have to be added later. But for now, we're going to get our guys ready, and of course it's Evan Courageous and Shannon Moore. The other one, of course, was Sugar Shane Helms, which, looks like we do have Sugar Shane Helms. Okay, cool. So I will add him. I thought I didn't have him. I guess I kept him. So yeah, we'll get him added. That. So that's good. Okay. He's not active right now. The one that's active is the Hurricane, so that's fine. But yeah, 3 count is back in WCW. So Courageous, Shannon Moore, and Sugar Shane Helms for 3 counts. So the other teams that we're going to have, the APA, obviously. Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane. Edge and Christian. The Filthy Animals, Kidman and Mysterio. There were more than them, but we're just going with the 2. Hardy Boys, Harlem Heat, Chronic. LAX is coming over. Originally, of course, they're from TNA, but since this playthrough, TNA Entertainment owns WCW. Some of the TNA stars that came up in the original TNA will be coming through our pipeline. So I have LAX here. Los Guerreros, Eddie and Chavo. The Natural Born Thrillers, Mike Sanders leading Sean Stasiak and Mark Jindrak. The Outsiders, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. Palumbo and O'Haire. Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo, the first Cruiserweight Tag Team title holders, they're here. The Steiner Brothers, Rick and Scott. Team Canada, consisting of Lance Storm, Mike Awesome, and Test. Team Hardcore, consisting of Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman. And of course, you saw Kid Rock, 3 count. There will be, I'm going to try and add some more teams later on. I know the Young Dragons, they were in WCW. And there might be some other teams that'll be coming up here as well. So let's take a quick peek at the rosters before we hang this up. And then you guys will have seen what the plan is for each show. So let's start with Impact. So Impact will have veterans, mostly training and mentoring with the young guys. A lot of the young guys that came up in 2002 will be here for starters. So as you can see, we have Batista, or we have AJ Styles, young AJ Styles. He's here. We have Batista, that's the old That's the current Batista. Sorry, that's not the older one. I have to get that updated. Big Boss Man, he's here. Big Vito's here. The Blue Meanie, Chris Candido, Christopher Daniels, CM Punk, Dean Malenko, Evan Courageous, The Great Muta, Hardcore Holly, Kid Cash, Justin Credible, Jimmy Wang Yang, Hugh Morris, Mark Henry, Maven, the first Tough Enough winner, he's here. Perry Saturn, Randy Orton, Shane Douglas, the franchise, and Stevie Richards. So a lot of these guys are the veterans, but there's a few young guys here, and that's mostly because the people on here are because there's just not enough space on Raw and Nitro, and they won't get the time of day. So a lot of these guys are going to get the spotlight here on Impact. And of course, the young guys will be trained by a lot of these veterans, so that's a good thing. Okay, so here is the Raw roster. And before I start, I'm sure you noticed right away there is somebody on here that is controversial. And of course, we all know the events of what took place in, I think it was 2007 or 8. Talk about this guy right here. Now, seeing as this playthrough takes place in 2002 and he was heavily involved in it, I'm going to include him in this because I do want him a part of this. And I'm not going to mention what happened that fateful night where he chose to do something he shouldn't have. But, you know, he's a part of this brand. I'm only going to exclusively use him because of 2000, because he was involved in 2002. We're not going to talk about the heinous crime he pulled off. We're just going to simply recognize him being a part of WCW, now WWF, or WWF at the time. We're not going to glorify him just because, you know, a lot of people choose to use him. A lot of people choose not to. I'm going to use him strictly because it's the time period. He was around. He was okay at the time. So, you know, controversy outside the ring aside, you know, in the ring, he was one of the best of all time. But unfortunately, he screwed himself out of his legacy and being recognized because of what he did. And you know what? He's burning in hell because of it. But for this playthrough, he's involved. And that's all I'm going to say about Chris Benoit as of right now. I'm not going to talk about what happened that night. It's what he did was inexcusable. So, moving forward, here's the Raw roster. We have Alundra Blaze, The Big Show. Bradshaw is here. Brock Lesnar, even though I think he did debut around, he's already debuted by this point, but we're going to have him on Raw instead of Impact. Bubba Ray Dudley's here. Chavo Jr.'s here. We mentioned Chris Benoit. Christian, D'Lo, Eddie Guerrero, Farouk, Goldust, Hernandez, and Homicide of LAX. I decided, originally I was going to put them on Impact and have them trained, but I'm like, we need more tag teams for Raw, so I added them to compete on Raw for the titles. Ivory and Jacqueline are here. Jazz is here. Jeff Hardy, Kane, Kurt Angle, Lita, Mankind, Mark Jindrak of the Natural Born Thrillers is here. Matt Hardy, Mike Sanders, he's here to lead the Thrillers. Mr. Perfect, New Jack, Nydia, who is the first female Tough Enough winner. She's here. Rhino. Originally, Nydia, I was going to put her on Impact, but we needed women, so she's going to be on Raw. Rhino Rikishi, Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Sandman, Scotty 2 Hotty, Shawn Michaels. This was right around the time he came out of retirement and came back. He famously led the NWO. Kevin Nash brought him in after we lost Scott Hall. Scott Hall got fired after the plane ride from hell incident. And then, of course, after Kevin Nash went down with injury, he had his feud with Triple H and got back in the ring and had some of the best matches of his career, his second half of his career. Sean Stasiak of the Thrillers is here. Stephanie is here, strictly because of Triple H. Steve Austin, Super Crazy, Taz, Triple H, of course, Trish, Undertaker, Victoria, William Regal, and X-Pac. And the general manager of Raw and Nitro, I had him in my head, but now I can't remember who I'm going to do. I got to think about that for a minute, so give me a minute while I go through Nitro, and I'll think about who my general managers are going to be. I have a couple ideas for that. Paul Heyman will not be one of them because I'm going to have him be Brock Lesnar's. He's going to be Brock Lesnar's manager. Which, do I have Paul Heyman? I don't remember now that we've gone through all these. Oops. Now we've gone through everybody. I don't remember if I saw Paulie. I think. No, I do not. Okay, so I need to get Paul Heyman. And I know I have him because I downloaded him not too long ago. Oh, maybe I don't. You know what? I deleted him because I wanted somebody else. I do not have Paul Heyman. At least that one. Let me check. All characters. Maybe he's in this one. Paul Heyman. No, I do not. Okay, so I do not have Paul Heyman. Okay, so that's disappointing. That's okay. I might add him later. For Nitro, here is the Nitro roster. Now, this is going to be pretty much almost WCW. There'll be a couple WWE guys on here. So, Kidman, Booker T, Bryan Adams and Clark, Chronic, they're here. Chris Jericho, Chris Canyon's here, Palumbo. Got Chyna coming back after her injury. She was out around this time for a while and then eventually got let go. They had the falling out with Vince, but in my world, she's back. She's healthy. Crowbar, Daphne, DDP, Edge, Elix Skipper, Gail Kim, who debuted around this time. She's on our roster. Got Goldberg, Hollywood Hogan, the Hurricane, also Shane Helms, who's on this roster, or will be on this roster. Iron Sheik is coming back. I have plans for him and a certain somebody who he's been feuding with on Twitter all these years. If you're a hardcore wrestling fan, you know who I'm talking about. It's going to be a great storyline feud. Jeff Jarrett, Slapnuts, he's back. Of course, he's the part owner of WCW and TNA Entertainment LLC, so he'll be involved. Kevin Nash, Big Sexy, he's back. Kid Cash and Romeo. Conan, La Parka, Lance Storm, Lex Luger's back. I'm going to team him with somebody else, which I don't have on the roster right now. He teamed up with somebody late in WCW, old WCW. I'm going to try and bring me in, so I got to find his tag team partner. Major Guns, Medeja, Mighty Molly, Mike Awesome, Psychosis, Raven, Rey Mysterio, Ric Flair, woo, the Nature Boy. I think I'm going to have him be the general manager of Nitro, even though him and Bischoff butted heads a lot in WCW, in the original WCW, and to this day they don't like each other. But I think in my universe, they bury the hatchet, and Ric Flair is going to be more of a on-screen authority figure. I think he did well as an authority figure with the Magnificent Seven before WCW's demise, so I'm going to do that on Nitro. Rick Steiner, The Rock, of course, the champ. Scott Hall, Scott Steiner, Sean O'Hare, Shane Moore. Sid Vicious is back. He's back from his leg injury he suffered at Sin. He's healed up. Stacy Keibler, Stevie Ray Sting, Tajiri, Terry Reynolds, Test, Tori Wilson, and Vampiro. And, of course, with the hiatus for 5 months, it allows people who have been injured to heal up and be fully restored. So guys like Triple H, who tore his quad, he's back. Sid Vicious with a bad broken leg at Sin, he's back. Chyna's back. So really looking forward to this card. I got a few more people I'm going to add for tag team. Like Lex Luger, I'm going to try and find Buff Bagwell. Totally Buff, get them back. And Paul Heyman, I'm going to see if I can add him back as well, because I forgot about him. So now I need to decide who I'm going to have Raw leading the way, because I I originally had Shane McMahon, but I think I got rid of him to make room for one of the Divas, which, yes, I did. So I need to figure out who I'm going to have leading Raw, and I think for the time being, it's going to be either Stephanie or I'm going to just in name Mick Foley. Because I have Mick Foley's other characters, Cactus Jack, Mankind, Dude Love, but they don't have Mick in here, or I don't have them unlocked. So I think for storyline purposes, when I do the transition scenes, let's just have Mick Foley run Raw. So Mick Foley is my Raw general manager. Ric Flair is my Nitro general manager. And for Impact, off camera, screw it, we'll say Dixie Carter. She's she's not gonna be she's not gonna be as involved as she was in Impact on TV. She's just gonna be, setting matches up. She might appear and make announcements, but that's strictly what it's gonna be, just for an authority figure. So, Mick Foley for Raw, Ric Flair for for Nitro, and then Dixie Carter for Impact. Those are your general managers, and that is your walkthrough of WCW 2002. And as you can see, we're gonna start right away Monday Night Raw. And that'll be the next episode, and we're going to go from there. So I think you guys are going to like this playthrough. I'm certainly going to enjoy doing it. And I'm going to add some more superstars. I still need to work on entrances and finishing, celebrations. And I'm going to add a couple more. I'm going to try and add a couple more tag teams. I want to get the Young Dragons in there. I think they'd be good for the Cruiserweight division. And Buff Bagwell, get him in so we can get him teamed up back with Luger. So we got another tag team. And I just want to get everything locked down before we do the debut episode of Monday Night Raw. So hope you guys will tune in next time as we continue on this new playthrough of what happened if the Alliance had won the war.
If you like this episode, hit that like button, leave a comment if you like, subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to help out with future projects, upgrades to the channel, please visit my Patreon at patreon.com/mntwins28, or you can drop something in the old Cash App. You don't have to help, but any help is always greatly appreciated. Until next time, peace out.